My brother's girlfriend mocked me at family dinner, and everyone laughed along. Dad said, "Stop embarrassing us." So I stayed quiet until she bragged about her career. Then I pulled out my phone and destroyed everything they built on my back. Hey Reddit, never thought I'd be sharing this, but after what went down last month, I need to get this off my chest. This is about how my family spent years treating me like garbage, publicly humiliated me one too many times, and how I finally made them pay for every single insult. I'm Jake, 28 male, and I've been the family punching bag since I was old enough to understand what jokes were. My older brother Ethan, 32 male, is the golden child who can do no wrong. Smart, successful, married to a woman our parents worship, two kids they parade around like trophies. Then there's me, the screw-up, the disappointment, the one who never lived up to his potential. Let me paint you a picture of how dinners usually go in my family. We're talking about these monthly gatherings at my parents' house, where everyone shows up dressed nice, brings expensive bottles of beverages, and spends 3 hours pretending we're some kind of functional unit. Mom cooks this elaborate spread, Dad holds court at the head of the table, and Ethan gets to brag about whatever new achievement he's unlocked that month. And me? I'm the entertainment, the punchline, the cautionary tale they use to make themselves feel better about their own lives. My parents aren't poor. Dad owns a mid-sized accounting firm that he built from scratch in the 80s. Mom's a real estate agent who specializes in luxury properties. They live in this McMansion in the suburbs with the perfectly manicured lawn and the 3-car garage. Classic upper-middle-class success story. Ethan followed in Dad's footsteps, became a CPA, joined a prestigious firm, made partner by 30. He's got the colonial house in the good school district, the stay-at-home wife who looks like she stepped out of a catalog, and 2 kids who are already enrolled in private school despite being in kindergarten. Living the dream, according to everyone who matters. Then there's me. I'm a carpenter. Not the kind who builds custom furniture for rich people or does fancy renovations featured in home magazines. I'm talking about actual construction work. Framing houses, hanging drywall, installing cabinets. I work for a small residential construction company, 45 hours a week, getting my hands dirty and my back sore. I make decent money, about 55 grand a year plus occasional overtime. Not rich, but enough to pay my bills, save a little, and live comfortably in my modest apartment across town. I've got my own truck, no debt besides a manageable mortgage on a small rental property I bought 2 years ago, and a girlfriend who doesn't care that I don't wear a suit to work. But to my family, I'm a failure. A blue-collar embarrassment in a white-collar world. The joke started when I was in high school. I wasn't great at math, struggled with science, preferred shop class to AP anything. While Ethan was getting scholarships and college acceptance letters, I was barely maintaining a C average and trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to do with my life. Maybe Jake will marry rich, Mom would joke at dinner parties when her friends asked about my plans, since he's clearly not going to make anything of himself academically. Dad's favorite line was even better. Good thing someone in this family knows how to use his hands, since Jake sure can't use his head. Hilarious, right? Real knee-slapper material. I didn't go to college, couldn't afford it, didn't see the point, and honestly wasn't interested in 4 more years of school. Instead, I got an apprenticeship with a local contractor right after graduation, started at the bottom, learned the trade, worked my way up to lead carpenter over 6 years. My family treated this like I'd announced I was joining a cult. Carpentry? Dad had said, making it sound like I'd chosen to become a professional dumpster diver. That's your big plan? Manual labor? Mom tried to be supportive in her own twisted way. Well, at least you'll have a skill. You can always fix things around the house for your future wife. Ethan, being the supportive older brother he is, offered this gem. Hey man, someone's got to build the houses for people like me to buy. Nothing wrong with being working class. Working class, like it was some kind of disease. The thing is, I actually love my job. There's something satisfying about starting with a bare foundation and ending with a completed structure. About measuring twice and cutting once, about seeing your work stand solid and square. I take pride in what I build, even if it's just subdivision houses that all look the same. But my family never asked about my work, never showed interest in what I was building or what skills I was learning. They just saw a guy in work boots and assumed I'd made bad life choices. The monthly dinners became a torture ritual I couldn't escape. Missing one meant disappointing Mom, which meant weeks of guilt trips and passive-aggressive comments. So I showed up every month, sat through 3 hours of subtle insults, and tried to remember why family was supposed to matter. The pattern was always the same. We'd gather around the table, Mom would serve her perfectly prepared meal, and within 15 minutes, someone would make a joke at my expense. Usually, Ethan, sometimes Dad. Occasionally, even Ethan's wife Lauren would join in with a sweet smile and a comment designed to cut. "How's work going, Jake?" Ethan would ask, setting up the trap. "Good. We just finished framing a development out in Riverside." "That's nice. Must be hard work. I don't know how you do it. Physical labor every day. I get tired just thinking about it." "It's not that bad once you're used to it. Still, you should take care of your body. You don't want to end up broken down by 40 with nothing to show for it. That's why I tell people to invest in education. Your brain lasts longer than your back." Dad would nod approvingly. Mom would make some comment about hoping I was saving for the future. Lauren would look at me with pity, disguised as concern, and I'd sit there eating pot roast, wondering why I kept subjecting myself to this. The financial commentary was their favorite angle. Every dinner included some discussion about investments, property values, or Ethan's latest bonus. Then they'd turn to me. "Are you contributing to a retirement account?" Dad would ask, like I was some financial illiterate. "Yeah, I've got a 401k through work." "What's your contribution rate?" 6%. "That's not enough. You should be doing at least 15% at your age. Especially with no college degree. You'll need more saved since you won't have the earning potential of someone with professional credentials." "Thanks, Dad. Really boosting my confidence here." Mom's contribution was usually about my living situation. "Are you still renting that apartment?" "You know, at your age, Ethan already owned his first home. I actually bought a small rental property last year. I live in one unit and rent out the other." "Oh, well, that's practical. Not quite the same as owning a real home, but it's a start. A real home. Because my house wasn't real enough." Ethan would chime in with advice I never asked for. "You should really think about going back to school, man. Even a community college degree would open up opportunities. You could move into project management, get off the job sites, make real money. Real money. Like my paycheck was monopoly currency." The absolute worst was when they'd talk about my personal life. I'd been dating my girlfriend Vanessa for 2 years. She's a veterinary technician. Smart, independent, makes decent money, loves animals more than people. We met at a friend's barbecue, hit it off immediately, and had been solid ever since. My family hated her. Not because she was a bad person, not because she treated me poorly. They hated her because she wasn't accomplished enough for their standards. She didn't have a graduate degree. She didn't come from money. Her family was working class like mine, and that was apparently unacceptable. "Are you still seeing that Vanessa?" Mom would ask, saying her name like it tasted bad. "Yeah, we're doing great actually." "That's nice. Have you met anyone else? Through work maybe?" "I'm not looking to meet anyone else. I'm happy with Vanessa." Of course, of course. I just think you should keep your options open. You're still young." Translation: Your girlfriend isn't good enough. Please upgrade. Lauren particularly enjoyed making passive-aggressive comments about Vanessa. Does she have any career ambitions? Or is the animal clinic thing long-term? She loves her job. She's actually studying to become a certified veterinary technician specialist. Oh, how sweet. That's like, what, a certificate program? It's a rigorous certification process that takes 2 years of specialized training and passing multiple exams. Right, right. I'm sure it's very challenging. The condescension was thick enough to cut with a knife. My relationship with Ethan had never been great, but it got significantly worse after he got married and had kids. Suddenly, he became this authority figure who felt entitled to lecture me about life choices. Every conversation became an opportunity for him to demonstrate his superiority. "You know what your problem is?" he told me once during a particularly brutal dinner. "You're too comfortable with mediocrity. You settled for good enough instead of pushing for greatness." "I'm happy with my life," I replied. "That's exactly what I mean. Happy with mediocrity. I could never live like that." Dad beamed at him like he'd just discovered cold fusion. The worst part wasn't even the big moments. It was the constant drip of small insults. The way they'd talk about their vacation homes and investment portfolios while I sat there quietly. The way they'd discuss their children's private school education and SAT prep courses. The way they'd make plans for family photos and somehow forget to include me until the last minute. I was an afterthought. A disappointment they tolerated out of obligation. Every month I'd leave these dinners feeling smaller. I'd drive home in my work truck, pull into my modest apartment complex, and try to remember that my life was actually pretty good. I had meaningful work, enough money to be comfortable, a girlfriend who loved me, and friends who respected me. But something about those dinners made me forget all that. Made me feel like maybe they were right, maybe I was a failure, maybe I should be ashamed of who I was. Vanessa would ask how dinner went, and I'd shrug and say it was fine. She knew better. She'd seen how I came home deflated and quiet after every gathering. She'd suggested I stop going, but I couldn't explain why that felt impossible. They're your family, she'd say. They're supposed to support you, not tear you down. That's just how they are. They don't mean anything by it. Yes, they do. They absolutely mean it. And you deserve better. But I kept going, kept subjecting myself to the monthly humiliation ritual, kept telling myself it would get better, that eventually they'd see my worth, that someday I'd earn their respect. Then came the dinner that changed everything. It was October, and Mom had gone all out with a harvest theme. Fancy decorations, expensive cuts of meat, the whole production. Everyone showed up on time. Ethan and Lauren with their 2 kids, me fresh from a job site with my hair still dusty despite showering. The dinner started normally enough. Small talk about work and weather, Ethan bragging about some big client his firm had landed, Lauren discussing their plans to renovate their kitchen, the kids being paraded around and praised for every mundane achievement. Then Dad brought out the main course and made an announcement. "I wanted to share some exciting news with the family," he said, beaming. "I've decided to start succession planning at the firm, and I'm proud to announce that Ethan will be taking over as managing partner within the next 5 years." Everyone erupted in congratulations. Ethan acted humble, but you could see the pride radiating off him. Lauren was already planning the celebration party. Mom was crying happy tears. "This is a huge opportunity," Dad continued. "The firm has grown significantly, and Ethan's proven he has what it takes to lead it into the future." More applause. More congratulations. Ethan made a speech about honoring Dad's legacy and building on his success. It was a whole production. Then Dad turned to me. "Jake, I want you to know this doesn't change anything for you. We'll still need someone to handle facility maintenance and minor repairs around the office." The table went quiet. Everyone stared at me. "What?" I said, confused. "The firm. We'd love to have you handle our maintenance needs. Keep the building in good shape, fix things that break. It would be nice to keep it in the family." I sat there trying to process what he'd just said. His son was becoming managing partner of a successful accounting firm. His other son was being offered a job as the janitor. "I have a job," I managed to say. Of course. But this could be supplemental income. Help you build up that retirement fund we talked about." Ethan jumped in with his characteristic lack of awareness. "It actually would be perfect for you, Jake. You're already doing that kind of work anyway. And it would be nice having someone we trust handling the building. I'm a carpenter, not a janitor. It's all construction related," Dad said, waving his hand dismissively. "Same skill set." That's when Ethan's wife Lauren, sweet, perfect Lauren, who'd never worked a manual labor job in her life, decided to share her thoughts. "I think it's actually really generous of them to offer you steady work, Jake. Not everyone has family willing to help them out like that." The condescension in her voice was breathtaking. "I don't need help," I said quietly. "Of course you don't," Mom chimed in that tone that meant she absolutely thought I did. "But we worry about you. You're not getting any younger, and construction work is so physically demanding. This could be a nice safety net." A safety net. They were offering me a job as their building maintenance guy as a safety net. Ethan, apparently oblivious to how insulting this entire conversation was, kept going. "Plus, think about the networking opportunities. You'd be around professional business people. Might learn something, pick up some skills." "Pick up some skills," I repeated flatly. "Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could take some business classes eventually. Get certified in something. Elevate yourself professionally." That's when something inside me snapped. Not in an explosive way. More like a door quietly closing. I looked around the table at these people who were supposed to love me, who'd spent the last decade treating me like a disappointment, who were now offering me a job as their janitor while celebrating my brother's executive promotion. And I smiled. "You know what? That's a really generous offer. Let me think about it." Dad looked pleased. "Take your time. No pressure. Just want to keep things in the family." The rest of dinner was unbearable. Ethan kept talking about his plans for the firm. Lauren discussed redecorating her house, now that they'd have more money. Mom made comments about finally being able to retire comfortably. And I sat there eating my food, nodding at appropriate moments, and planning. After dinner, while everyone was having dessert in the living room, I excused myself to the bathroom. Instead, I went to Dad's home office. He kept files there on all his business dealings. Old school, liked paper copies of everything important. I found what I was looking for pretty quickly. Dad's succession plan wasn't just about Ethan taking over. It included a complete restructuring of the company shares. Ethan was getting 45% ownership. Dad was retaining 45%. and the remaining 10% was divided among 3 senior partners. Guess who wasn't mentioned anywhere in that document? Not that I expected to be included in Dad's business succession. I'd never worked there, never expressed interest, never pursued accounting, but seeing it spelled out, seeing Ethan's future secured while I was being offered a maintenance job, made everything crystal clear. I was not part of this family's success story. I was the supporting character they kept around out of obligation. I took photos of the documents with my phone, not for any specific reason at that moment, just insurance. Then I went back to dessert, ate my pie, and made small talk about nothing important. When it was time to leave, I hugged Mom, shook Dad's hand, and told Ethan congratulations. They all looked surprised by my pleasant demeanor. I'd been unusually quiet during the end of dinner, but now I was smiling and cordial. "You okay, Jake?" Mom asked, searching my face. "Never better, just tired from work. Long week. You should take better care of yourself," she said, patting my arm. "Maybe take a vacation." "Maybe I will." I drove home that night feeling oddly calm. Vanessa was waiting up, reading on the couch. She took one look at my face and knew something had changed. "What happened?" I told her everything. The succession announcement, the maintenance job offer, the casual insults, the complete disregard for my dignity as a human being. She listened without interrupting, her face getting progressively more angry. "That's it," she said when I finished. "You're done. You're not going back there." "I know. I'm serious, Jake. Those people are toxic. They don't deserve you." "I know," I repeated. "And I'm going to make sure they understand exactly what they lost." See, the thing about being a carpenter is you learn patience. You learn to plan projects carefully, to measure accurately, to anticipate problems before they happen. You learn that rushing leads to mistakes, and mistakes cost time and money. I applied those same principles to my revenge. The next morning, I started making phone calls. First to my boss at the construction company. "Tom, hypothetically, if someone wanted to start their own residential construction business, what would that look like?" Tom had been in the industry for 30 years. He knew everyone, understood the business inside and out, and had always told me I had the skills to go independent if I wanted. "You thinking about branching out?" "Maybe. Just exploring options." We talked for an hour about licensing requirements, insurance needs, startup costs, and potential client bases. Tom was surprisingly supportive, even offering to refer some of his overflow work my way once I got established. "You're ready for this, Jake. You've got the skills and the work ethic. Only question is whether you've got the guts to take the risk." I had the guts. More importantly, I had a plan. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked quietly on setting up my business, filed for an LLC, got my contractor's license upgraded, secured business insurance, set up a separate bank account, created a simple website. All the boring administrative stuff that makes a legitimate business. I called it Precision Carpentry. Simple name, professional logo, focus on quality residential work. My unique selling point was going to be attention to detail and reliability, 2 things most contractors struggle with. Meanwhile, I kept going to my regular job, showing up to family dinners and acting like nothing had changed. Ethan had started talking about his transition into Dad's firm, asking my opinion on office renovations and building improvements. "Since you'll be handling maintenance," he'd say, like it was a done deal. "Sure," I'd reply. "Happy to give input." I let them think I was considering their generous offer. Let them believe I was grateful for the opportunity. Let them get comfortable with the idea of me as their building maintenance guy. Then I started reaching out to Dad's firm's clients. Not directly, I'm not an idiot, but through networking and referrals. Turns out when you've been in construction for a decade, you know a lot of people. And those people know other people. One of my coworkers had a brother who owned a small chain of medical offices. They needed someone to handle facility improvements and renovations. I gave them a quote, competitive pricing, detailed timeline, examples of my work. They loved it. "You seem really professional for an independent contractor," the owner said. "I take pride in my work. We've been using this big commercial firm, but honestly, their attention to detail is terrible, and they're always running over budget. If you do good work on this first project, we've got 3 more locations that need updates." The first project went perfectly. I showed up on time every day, stayed within budget, finished ahead of schedule, and the quality was flawless. The medical office owner was thrilled. "I'm telling everyone about you," he said, handing me a check. "This is exactly what we needed." Word spread fast. Within 2 months, I had steady work lined up through the end of the year. Enough to quit my day job and go full-time with Precision Carpentry. My income actually increased. Turned out I could make more working for myself than working for someone else. I told my family about starting my own business at the next monthly dinner. Tried to frame it casually, like it wasn't a big deal. So I actually started my own carpentry business. Things are going pretty well. Dad looked confused. Your own business? When did this happen? Been working on it the last couple months. Just went full-time last week. Isn't that risky? Mom asked, concerned. Giving up steady employment for something uncertain? It's not that uncertain. I've already got projects booked through December. Ethan, ever the expert on fields he knew nothing about, offered his wisdom. Small businesses fail at an incredibly high rate, Jake, especially in construction. The overhead, the liability, the cash flow issues. It's really complicated. I'm aware of the risks. Have you talked to an accountant about the tax implications? Set up proper business insurance? Created an operating agreement? Yes, yes, and yes. He looked surprised. Oh, well, good. Still, if you need any business advice, I'm happy to help. I've been studying business management pretty extensively. I'll keep that in mind. The whole family seemed skeptical that I could handle running a business. Dad suggested I might want to reconsider their maintenance offer as a safety net. Mom worried about me not having benefits. Lauren made some comment about the importance of financial stability before making big career moves. Only Vanessa believed in me. I'm really proud of you, she said later that night. This is huge. Thanks. Now comes the hard part. What's that? Making sure they understand exactly what they threw away. See, starting my own business wasn't just about independence. It was about proving something. Every month at those dinners, my family had made me feel worthless. Made me believe that my work didn't matter, that my skills were inferior, that I was fundamentally less than them. I was going to prove them wrong in the most public way possible. Over the next 6 months, precision carpentry grew faster than I'd anticipated. That medical office owner made good on his promise. Told everyone he knew about my work. I picked up clients from word-of-mouth referrals, each project leading to 2 or 3 more. I hired my first employee, a younger guy fresh out of trade school who reminded me of myself at that age. Then a second employee. Then I had to turn down work because I was at capacity. The money was good, really good. I paid off my truck, paid off my rental property, and started saving serious money. Within 8 months, I doubled my income from what I was making at my old job. And I did it all while my family continued treating me like a charity case. How's the business going? Dad would ask at dinners, in that tone that implied he expected me to fail. Really well, actually. Booked solid through next quarter. That's great. Just make sure you're putting money aside for the slow seasons. Construction is very cyclical. I'm aware. Ethan offered unsolicited advice constantly. You should really think about incorporating. An LLC doesn't offer enough liability protection for something like construction. You could get sued and lose everything. I've consulted with a business attorney. My structure is fine. Still, you might want to get a second opinion. Business law is complicated. The condescension never stopped. I kept showing up to dinners, kept being polite, kept letting them think I was still the screw-up little brother who needed their guidance. Then, almost exactly 1 year after that dinner where they offered me a maintenance job, I made my move. Dad's accounting firm had a big anniversary celebration planned. 50 years in business. They'd rented out a fancy venue, invited all their clients and professional contacts, and planned this elaborate event to celebrate Dad's legacy and announce Ethan's official promotion to managing partner. I was invited, of course. The disappointing son had to make an appearance for the family photo. The event was exactly what you'd expect. Fancy clothes, expensive food, networking disguised as celebration. Dad gave a speech about building his firm from nothing, about integrity and excellence, about passing the torch to the next generation. My son Ethan represents everything I hoped to achieve when I started this firm, Dad said from the podium. His dedication, his expertise, his commitment to our clients. He's ready to lead us into the future. Everyone applauded. Ethan stood up, modest smile in place, accepting congratulations. Mom was crying again. Lauren was already planning the next celebration. Then Dad did something I wasn't expecting. He called me up to the front. I also want to acknowledge my younger son, Jake, he said as I walked up, confused. Jake has chosen a different path in life, but he's still part of this family. And I'm proud to announce that Jake will be handling all of our facility maintenance and building improvements going forward. He said it like it was an honor, like he was doing me a favor. The whole room of business professionals watching as he essentially announced his other son was their janitor. I stood there at the microphone, looking out at hundreds of people, and smiled. Thank you, Dad. That's very generous, but I'm afraid I'll have to decline. The room went quiet. Dad looked confused. Decline? Yeah. See, I started my own construction company last year. precision carpentry, and we're actually doing really well. So well, in fact, that I don't have time to take on maintenance work. I could see Dad processing this, trying to understand. But this would be steady income, a guaranteed contract. I have steady income. Last year, I grossed $300,000. After expenses and payroll, I personally cleared about $145,000, which is actually more than Ethan made as a senior associate, according to the partnership documents I saw in your office. The room was dead silent now. Dad's face was turning red. Ethan looked like he'd been punched. I saw those documents, by the way, I continued, my voice carrying across the room. The succession plan, the ownership structure, the complete lack of any consideration for me. Not that I expected any, since I never worked here, but it was very clarifying. Mom started to say something, but I kept talking. For years, you've treated me like a failure. Made jokes about my work, my girlfriend, my life choices, offered me pity jobs and unsolicited advice. Made me feel worthless every single month at your dinners. Jake, this isn't the time. Dad tried to interrupt. No, this is exactly the time. Because you just announced to a room full of your professional contacts that your son would be your janitor. And I want everyone here to know exactly what you think of the son who works with his hands. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the venue's display system, the same system they'd been using for Dad's presentation slides. This is what I do, I said, as photos of my work appeared on the screen. Custom homes, renovations, commercial projects. This is a medical office complex I completed last quarter. This is a custom home in the Highlands. This is a restaurant renovation downtown. The photos cycled through, each one professional quality, showing detailed craftsmanship and finished projects. I built all of this in less than a year. While you were making jokes about manual labor, I was building a successful business. While you were offering me maintenance jobs, I was hiring employees and turning down work because we're at capacity. I disconnected my phone and looked directly at Dad. So thank you for the generous offer, but I don't think I'm the right fit for your facility maintenance needs. I'm sure you can find someone more qualified. Maybe check Craigslist. Then I walked off the stage, past my frozen family, and straight out of the venue. Vanessa was waiting in the parking lot. She'd declined to attend the event because she was tired of being treated like garbage by my family. When I got in the car, she was grinning. How did it go? I think I just burned every bridge in my family. Good. You deserve better anyway. We drove home and I felt lighter than I had in years. My phone started blowing up immediately. Calls from my parents, from Ethan, from extended family members who'd heard what happened. I ignored all of them. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of emails. Most were angry messages from family, but buried in there were several inquiries from people who'd been at the event, asking about my services. Turns out publicly demonstrating your expertise in front of a room full of business owners is decent marketing. Over the next week, the fallout was spectacular. My parents called constantly, alternating between anger and guilt trips. Dad was furious I'd embarrassed him in front of his clients. Mom couldn't understand why I was being so cruel. Ethan sent long texts about how I damaged his professional reputation. I didn't respond to any of it. My extended family got involved, aunts and uncles calling to tell me I'd gone too far. That family was sacred, that I should apologize. I blocked most of them. The only family member who reached out with support was my cousin David, Dad's brother's son. He sent me a simple text. Been waiting years for someone to call them out on their nonsense. Well done. Vanessa's family threw me a small celebration. Her parents, a truck driver and a teacher, had always treated me with more respect than my own family. They understood what I'd built, appreciated the work I did, and were genuinely proud of my success. You're a good man, Jake, her dad told me. Don't let anyone make you forget that. Meanwhile, my business continued growing. Several of the people from Dad's event became clients. The story spread through professional networks, not the ugly family drama, but the success story of a skilled tradesman building a thriving business. Within 3 months, I had to hire 2 more employees. Within 6 months, I was looking at expanding into commercial construction. The business I built in spite of my family's mockery was becoming something significant. Dad's firm started having issues around the same time. Nothing catastrophic, but several of their long-term clients didn't renew contracts. Word in professional circles was that Ethan's management style wasn't going over well. He had the credentials, but lacked Dad's relationship-building skills. I heard through mutual contacts that Dad was having trouble with the building itself. Turns out, when you insult your son who could have done the work, you have to hire outside contractors who charge premium rates and don't care about quality. Small problems became bigger problems. The roof leaked during winter. The HVAC system failed during a heat wave. Basic maintenance was neglected because Dad was too proud to hire professionals and too cheap to pay fair rates. Ethan tried reaching out after about 4 months. A text that said, "Can we talk? Family shouldn't be like this." I responded, "Family shouldn't treat each other like you treated me." But here we are. He showed up at my office one day. We'd moved into an actual office space with a small warehouse for materials and equipment. He looked tired, older than his 32 years. "Jake, I came to apologize." "Okay. I was wrong. We were all wrong. The way we treated you, the things we said, none of it was fair." "You're right, it wasn't. So can we move past this? Can we rebuild?" I looked at my brother, the golden child who'd spent years making me feel worthless. The guy who'd offered me business advice while I was actually building a business. The person who'd congratulated himself for offering me maintenance work. "Ethan, I appreciate the apology, but we can't rebuild what was never properly built in the first place." "What does that mean?" "It means our relationship was built on you being better than me. Superior education, superior job, superior life. Now that I'm successful too, that foundation doesn't work anymore." "That's not true." "It absolutely is. Every dinner, every conversation, every interaction was about establishing your position above mine. You didn't love me as a brother. You loved having someone to look down on." He started to argue, but I cut him off. "I've moved on, Ethan. I'm successful. I'm happy. I have people in my life who respect me. I don't need your approval anymore. And honestly, I don't want it." He left looking defeated. I felt nothing watching him go. No satisfaction, no guilt, just emptiness where family obligation used to live. Mom tried a different approach. Showed up at my apartment when she knew Vanessa would be home, hoping she could leverage some kind of female solidarity or something. Vanessa shut that down immediately. "Mrs. Patterson, with all due respect, Jake doesn't owe you anything. You spent years making him feel worthless. Now you want him back because he's successful? That's not how it works. I'm his mother. Then you should have acted like it when he needed support." Mom left in tears. I got a series of emotional voicemails about how I'd broken her heart, how family was everything, how she'd always loved me even if she didn't show it properly. Too little, too late. Dad was the last holdout. Took him almost a year to reach out. When he finally called, his voice sounded older, tired. "Jake, I need to tell you something. I'm listening. I'm selling the firm. Ethan and I, it's not working out. He's not ready for this level of responsibility, and I can't keep carrying it." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" "Because part of me thinks you wanted this to happen." "Dad, I didn't want anything except basic respect. You couldn't give me that." Long silence on the line. "I was wrong," he finally said. "About you, about your work, about what matters. I built my whole identity around professional success and white-collar prestige. I couldn't see past that." "No, you couldn't. Is there any way we can fix this?" I thought about that question. Thought about all the dinners, all the insults, all the years of being treated like a disappointment. Thought about the people who'd actually supported me. Vanessa, her family, my employees, my friends. "Dad, I don't know if you can fix something that was broken from the start. You didn't respect me when I was struggling. You don't get to claim me now that I'm successful. So that's it? We're just done?" "We were done the moment you offered me a janitor job at your son's promotion party. Everything since then has just been me accepting what you already decided." I hung up before he could respond. That was 8 months ago. I haven't spoken to any of them since. Haven't attended family dinners. Haven't responded to holiday messages. Haven't engaged with their attempts to reconcile. My business is thriving. We're on track to gross over $500,000 this year. I have 6 employees, regular clients, and a reputation for quality work. Vanessa and I got engaged last month. Her family is throwing us an engagement party. Her dad offered to help with the wedding costs. Her mom is already planning everything with more excitement than my own mother ever showed for any of my achievements. I heard through mutual contacts that Ethan's working for a mid-sized firm now, no longer a partner. Dad sold his company for less than he'd hoped and retired quietly. Mom's still doing real estate, but their finances are tighter than they're used to. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.